basically, when the president goes somewhere or anyone has a security detachment, there are of a certain amount of importance. There are local law enforcement you have to coordinate with. There are at the local, state, and federal level. There's the FBI that were part of the security detail. There's the Secret Service, which is not part of the Department of Justice, which the FBI is part of the DOJ. The Secret Service is part of the Department of Treasury. Different departments, different agencies, different law enforcements that operate at different levels. They all have to coordinate. And when they do that, there's going to be a place nearby, maybe even on site, to the presidential rally. And this is called TOC, a Tactical Operations Command. And they have liaisons that are plugged into communications, imagery from local, state, federal, and different departments. They're all trying to work together and communicate. And this obviously causes massive problems, just naturally. We have seen firsthand how incompetent and how little training some of these police officers have. Okay. So just accepting those things that we've seen with our own eyes, we're going to move forward. When the president goes to look at a site or look at or go to speak at a place, there will be an advanced team from the Secret Service who examine the site. They liaise with local law enforcement, and they get plugged into local police intelligence, like who are threats in this area, who are like violent criminals, who like pops on a registry that has a gun. Like they're all looking at this thing. So one of the things that could be explained is like, this guy didn't really have a ghost. The gun didn't really have a presence. He wasn't saying anything crazy that would be picked up by local police intelligence networks. So he had a rifle that was registered to his father, who didn't have any dirt on him at all. So obviously that doesn't explain away anything, but it is something that you have to take into consideration. There's the Trump stage, right? You have one sniper position here. You have the location of suspect's body. So the advanced team, what they would do when they come in here is they would survey the grounds. They would basically search everything up to like, I'm not sure what their exact tactics, techniques, and procedures are, but probably within 500 meters, at least half a kilometer of everything that's in here. I mean, that would make sense. They would go through these buildings. You know, it wouldn't be an in-depth search. It would just be looking for like sniper positions, hide sites, any pre-staged equipment, like maybe a gun hidden somewhere pre-staged. Like there was a ladder, which is how he got up onto the roof, that was pre-staged, that they totally missed. We don't know if he put it there or a maintenance guy left it out, but nobody saw that there was roof access. That was a big mistake as well. They have the snipers here, and they should be able to cover like these trees here, the building here. This was a sound stage, so there's probably not going to be any sniper positions on that because it was occupied by sound technicians. They should have pushed it out like 500 meters. Then they also look for things like avenues of ingress, you know, where people can enter. They have screening checkpoints where you're supposed to be able to enter into the event. I've never been to a presidential election, but I've heard, yes, there is like a metal detection aspect to it. And you would look for all of this. Apparently, some mistakes were absolutely made. And this was apparently after the shooting, the suspect's body was on top of the roof. And there was a dispute over whether or not this was like staged or something, because in some imagery, you have a dark roof, and some imagery, like everything's white. You have the advanced team. And when it comes to security details, you have visible people, right? There's a visible element to security details. So, you know, you've seen in the movies, you see the Secret Service guys with, you know, the plugs in their ears, and they're in suits, and they're standing around the president, and they have handguns. So that's like the high vis body protection, like close body protection. Then you have people in plain clothes going throughout the crowd, low vis, not detectable. They're looking for threats, visually scanning. And then you have a counter assault team. So we're going to see, when we replay all this footage, you're going to see guys in full tactical gear, ops corps helmets, assault rifles. So they are for like people like a gang or like a mob of people like driving in, breaking down the gate with guns and trying to mob rush or do an actual tactical assault on the president. So you get the high vis body people, you have low vis guys in plain clothes going throughout the event. You have the counter assault team, and then you have the counter sniper team. And this is where the law enforcement snipers were. The fact that there was only one shooting location is kind of absurd to me. You also have this, and if you expand the map out, you can definitely see that there's a water tower here that's like 40 feet, You would have intersecting lines of fire from the top of this roof and the top of the water tower, and be able to target things like over here that you wouldn't be able to necessarily engage from the top of the roof. I don't know why anybody was not in that. Honestly, there should have been somebody on site on the building where he was found. I don't know. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Of course, operational screw-ups definitely do happen. That's not damning in and of itself. Whoever planned it is definitely losing a job. I've seen bad planning before. Everyone's seen bad planning before. That was an egregious oversight. I will admit it. So now that we know that the coverage was crap, that they left there was a ladder for roof access that they didn't find. He was able to get on the roof from the ladder. So either he pre-placed it or a maintenance guy left it. Those seem like the most likely options. Let's get into the footage. So the one on the left, a lot of people have seen this one so far. It says plenty of time and opportunity to eliminate the threat. WTF.
Look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there, see him?
Okay, so we're at 15 seconds, right? A lot of the crowd starts to recognize a white dude, we're going to come back to this, climbing on top of the roof. I was never a sniper. I did go through a long-range marksmanship course in Ranger Regiment, which is like a tiny fraction of what sniper school is. You don't learn about like counter-sniper operations or how to build a hide site or any of the fun stuff, but you do learn about like stable shooting positions for long-range marksmanship. The most stable shooting position you can have is prone. So that's like kind of a dead giveaway. It's like, why would you be on the roof in the prone position at a presidential rally? Unless you weren't trying to do something shady, right? So the crowd identifies him, and we're going to keep going.
He's laying down. See him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And still I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a Senate
What's happening?
and to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look.
And it's
There he
not
is.
easy, because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here.
They're telling the police. This also does take time. Again, Harlan's razor. Don't attribute to malice what can be just straight up stupidity and incompetence. So he's informing a local law enforcement officer. Now, that local law enforcement officer has to call it up to the TOC, the Tactical Operations Command, and he's going to talk to a liaison officer from the local law enforcement. Then the local law enforcement liaison is going to turn to the Secret Service liaison and be like, hey, we got a guy on the roof. We should probably look at that. Then the Secret Service guy probably has to contact the sniper team, the counter sniper team on behind the podium to look out and visually clear and positively identify this guy. So this is not something that happens quickly, but this does take a long time. Like does take a little bit of a long time.
Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here. And it's much tougher than if it happened. We have the strongest border ever. In recorded history, we're the best border. In fact, if they could ever put up a chart, I don't know if they can do it. Do you guys have access to that chart that I love so much?
So we're about 45 seconds in from at least the people who are being recorded on the video are saying something.
You don't mind
a local law
if I go with
enforcement.
teleprompter, do you? You guys are doing it. They're getting better with time. My guys, take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people.
Okay, now we're almost at 2 minutes since the local law enforcement was informed.
And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you...
Okay, it looks like we got a plainclothes officer, like maybe a sheriff's deputy or something. Or maybe it's Secret Service running. It seems to be finally a reaction. I just want to point your attention. See this guy right here at the bottom corner in between the flags? That is a guy from the counter assault team. So he's in full like combat gear, right? If you look above him, there's a guy in red in plain clothes. The guy in plain clothes could be associated with some of the low vis detail.
That chart's a couple of months old, and
Someone yells, "He's got a gun." All right, then we see at the same time, we've got the snipers actively looking at him. So there's two men in a sniper team. There's a shooter and there's a spotter. The spotter is laying prone on the roof, and the shooter is on a knee on a tripod. I mean, tripod is stabilizing. It's kind of contentious, but I do feel like the prone is the best position with a bipod. But anyways, he's looking through the scope, and then right now he picks up his head. He just picks up his head, so he's no longer looking through the scope, and then shots, right? So that's kind of it's kind of like, ooh, what happened there? We've established, right, that was kind of like an empty zone. There should have been someone on that roof. The sniper they have eyes on him for like at least a minute, right? So you remember I talked about the communications chain traveling from the civilian to the law enforcement officer to the tactical operations center to the Secret Service to the counter sniper team. Well, if they're seeing a guy on the roof with a gun, there are such things as rules of engagement. We don't really associate that with like modern policing, but there are. So they see a guy on a roof with a gun. That's where a law enforcement officer should be. So one of the things you would have to consider, and I would do this too, I'd be like, is he a sheriff's deputy, like climbing onto a roof to cover a place that should be covered? That's a really reasonable thing to be wondering, because you don't want to shoot the wrong guy. You don't want to shoot like another law enforcement officer, right? I guess. So what he would be doing is calling it up. Hey, do we have anybody on the roof? That goes from the sniper to the tactical operations center to the Secret Service liaison, back to the local law enforcement. Local law enforcement guy has to call out, be like, hey, do we have anybody on the roof? That takes more time, and he shoots. That is also something that is a legitimate possibility that the snipers could have been entertaining. I certainly would not want to shoot someone that wasn't actively trying to engage, the former president. But you have to acknowledge that is a real thing, because that happens all the time. I mean, I've seen it overseas. Like we were supposed to be in like the most elite military in the world, and guess what? We did stupid stuff, made mistakes out of stupid things that could have easily been fixed. And I completely believe that this is a legitimate possibility. 100%. I've seen comparable things. You may disagree with me, but that is something that you have to take into consideration. The transmission, the time of communication, not having complete accountability, making mistakes at the outset of the operation that you're trying to fix while the operation's going on. That generally ends poorly. So all these things, I mean, it all boils down to incompetence, right? But it's believable. And again, I came into this segment with the intention of applying a philosophical razor to it. So now we're going to move on to the shots, okay? So again, sniper lifts up his head. I don't know why he does that. Maybe he's still waiting for confirmation. If you believe that maybe like someone called and says like, hold your shot. We're going to see what happens. Even if you want to believe that, fine. But he lifts his head up from the scope right before the shots are fired. Okay, so let's talk about bullets. All right, so here's what's happening. When you hear a bullet, it's already gone past you, unless you're using subsonic rounds, because bullets are supersonic. If you've ever been like shot at, people explain a snap hiss. So snap is the air breaking the sound barrier essentially near your head, and the bullet's already passed. And then the hiss is it coming by. There's a couple of explosions, a couple of sources of sound. There's the initial explosion inside the chamber where the gunpowder is ignited that sends the bullet out. There's the muzzle flash, and then it passes you, and that's the snap. So what we're hearing is the sound from the bullet passing the microphone in Donald Trump's like lav mic that's attached to his suit. So the bullet's already gone by him. So the first bullet misses him. He turns, and it seems like the second bullet hits his ear, because he hears the first bullet, turns, because it's already past him by the time he hears it, hits his ear. He puts his hand up to his ear. Then he goes to the ground. Every president is trained to just hit the ground. He was a president for 4 years. So it seems like that's what he does. So 2 shots, it seems. It's hard to sort the details, like which are explosions from the point of origin at the gun and it passing the lav mic. But 2 shots first. He sees that he misses, and then the shooter just opens up like with 6 more rounds. Yeah, he misses, probably gets frustrated, starts breaking shots. And then he kills one 50-year-old firefighter, hits 2 other men, but they're still in stable condition, those 2. You can hear the sniper shot that takes him out.
I hope he's turning this way. Be careful, guys.
Right there. Again, you heard that little a different kind of snap hiss? That was because the Secret Service guys were using a different caliber round, so it has a different sound signature. But it was just 1 shot. I guess they hit him in the head or enough to unalive him, to use TikTok language. And so there you go. And that's all he wrote.